call the meeting of the County Commissioners to order. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could remain standing for just a moment, we'd like to have a moment of silence. Unfortunately, recently we lost Mr. Basil Witkowski of Kent County, an attorney and was a staunch supporter and charter member of the Elks Lodge here in Kent County, and he'll be sorely missed. So we could keep his family in our prayers. Thank you very much. We're going to apologize right off the bat, especially myself. Most of the time, this job warrants a coat and tie, but this heat has got to where we're going to be a little more casual here for a while until things straighten out. So I apologize. Gentlemen, have we all had a chance to look at the consent items?
Yeah.
Any questions, or is there any that jumps out at you that needs an explanation further? Are we good? Because we have a list of consent items. We have a regular session minutes of June the 25th, 2024. We have our liquor minutes of June 25th, 2024. We have a closed session minutes of June 25th, 2024. We have an application from the Rock Hall Volunteer Fire Company for a combined gaming device dated July 7th, 2024. We have Kent County Memorial VFW Post 652 has made application for raffle only dated July 15th through November the 30th, 2024. We have Kent Agricultural Center. It's an application for a raffle only July the 20th, 2024. Jamie Williams, Director of Economic Tourism Development, needs a letter of support for FY 2025 Rural Maryland Council Rural Maryland Prosperity Investment Fund grant for the Millington Community Resource Center. Dan Matson is the Director of Public Works, FY 2025 renewal of the Johnson Controls Plan Service Agreement. We have Dan Matson, Director of Public Works, FY 2025, a renewal of our janitorial services contract. We have Mr. Bill Mackey, is the Director of Planning, Housing, and Zoning. Maryland Community Development Block Grant Semi-Annual Report for Housing Counseling, Grant MD-22-CD-1. So if there's no questions concerning these 10 items, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve all 10 consent items as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Then we have a special Class C license from the Betterton. It's an application made by the Betterton Volunteer Fire Company for beer only, and that's for August 2nd and 3rd, 2024. Now, because of this being an application for alcohol, it's in need of a public hearing. We will allow today to be that public hearing. So anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this application, please feel free to do so at this time. There being no comments, I'll entertain.
We do have a comment.
I'm sorry.
I think I'm probably the only one here from Betterton, but on behalf of the fire department, I think please approve it because we need all the funding we can get.
I hear you. Thank you, and I apologize for not noticing you, but I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special Class C per diem liquor license application for Betterton Volunteer Fire Company.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, we have our county attorney, Thomas Yeager, county attorney, and He's going to give us the public hearing protocols for a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have one matter for public hearing today, and this is CHR Bill 4/2024. This is to adopt the new zoning map. As you may recall, you have previously adopted a new comprehensive land use ordinance for the county, which sets forth your zones and your regulations. The zoning map is what tells you which property is in which zone. So this is for public hearing today. You're not going to vote on it. You're just going to take comments. Some written comments have already been received. Those should be in your packet. And for the record, we will note that those comments have been received, and they are a part of the record and will be part of what the commissioners consider. Additional written comments will be accepted until Friday, July 12th, which is this Friday at the close of business. So I'm going to go ahead and read the notice into the record for the bill, and then I would ask anyone who's going to testify to please make sure you sign up. The clerk will check to see if anyone has signed up, and if we do have individuals who've signed up, I will read the procedures for testifying. If no one signed up, I'll dispense with that. So here's the public notice for the hearing. This is Code Home Rule Bill Number 4/2024, introduced by Ronald H. Fithian, President of the Board of County Commissioners for Kent County, Maryland. An act to rescind and replace the Kent County, Maryland official zoning map in its entirety, which is adopted both as part of and in reference to Chapter 222 Unified Development Ordinance of the Public Local Laws of Kent County, Maryland, also known as the Kent County Land Use Ordinance, to implement the recommendations of the Kent County Planning Commission on proposed revisions to the official zoning map, which are based on the Kent County Planning Commission's review as part of the 2020-2024 comprehensive rezoning and update process, and including certain non-codified provisions to address Scrivener's errors, symbology, graphic legibility, and readability, and instructions to county staff related to revisions requested by the Critical Area Commission for provisions in the 2024 Land Use Ordinance, which directly relate to the zoning map, relationships with buffer modified area maps, and FEMA federal floodplain maps, and the effective date related to the required Critical Area Commission review and approval of the zoning map itself per Maryland Annotated Code Natural Resources Article Section 8-1809, as the same may be amended from time to time. A hearing will be held on July 9th, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, Art Clayton Mitchell Jr., Kent County Government Center, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland. The agenda for the meeting will be published online 24 hours in advance of the meeting at kentcounty.com/commissioners/meeting-agenda. Citizens are encouraged to participate in the public hearing process. If you require communication assistance, please contact the County Commissioner's Office at 410-778-4600 and press 4, or visit Maryland Relay at mdrelay.org no later than noon on Friday, July 5th. A complete copy of the proposed legislative bill is available in the Commissioner's Office, 400 High Street, Chestertown, Maryland, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and on the county's website at kentcounty.com/commissioners/draft-legislation. This is by order of the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Sonder M. Blackiston, Clerk, and this was published in the Kent County News on June 20th, 2024. And I just will mention, as part of this legislation, if it turns out there's a typo in the map or a printing error, the Planning Department has the authority to make those corrections without coming back to you to have to do new legislation for that. And again, those would only be errors. They wouldn't be any substantive changes. They would just be if whoever's printing it made a mistake. So has anyone signed up to testify?
Today we have Ms. Carla Gerber
Okay.
to speak with us.
So what we would do is we would have Mrs. Gerber speak first and present on behalf of the Planning Department, and then after she's spoken, if the commissioners have any questions for Mrs. Gerber, she's here to answer them, and then we would take comments from the audience. Do we
We have two people have signed up, Tom, Mr. Kevin Kimball and Trey James.
Okay.
Jones, excuse me.
Okay, we just ask that when you come up, one at a time, identify yourself and state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes, but in the discretion of the chair, that can be modified. And please stick to the issues at hand. And again, if anyone wishes to send in written comments rather than speaking today, you have until this Friday.
Very good. We'll take them, are you going to?
Mrs. Gerber first. Anyone who's going to testify, you solemnly swear and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief.
I do.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Carla.
I'm not sure that I have much to add. I think the summary of the bill pretty clearly outlines what has happened. I would just reiterate, that the Planning Commission has voted to recommend several map changes based on a request from citizens and also for kind of cleaning up some things that have happened since the last comprehensive rezoning to clarify some things on the map. And so if you have questions, I can certainly answer those. Otherwise, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
I don't think we have any questions yet. We may after
Certainly,
some
yeah.
of our people speak to us.
Yeah.
First up is Mr. Kevin Kimball. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Kimball, 348 Flatland Road. As you know, I have a request for rezoning of my property on Flatland Road. It was unanimously approved and requested for you to make the zoning change from the Planning Commission in April. The only comment that the Planning Commission had was that they agree with it because it complies with smart growth from the state of Maryland and the vision that is already in place in the Kent County Comprehensive Plan. The only clarification, modification I have toward that is since I border the municipality of Chestertown, I border current residential zoning of Kent County, and I also border protected lands in farm agriculture land preservation. I would like to modify, we never really talked about whole farm, partial farm, or where it would be. We're just considering it's whole farm. I think to be most considerate of my neighbors and the protected agricultural land, let's split off, and I enclosed a map, let's split off some of this that stays agriculture so my neighbors will know that it will never be, we're talking about vision for the future, not now. But it would be most considerate of my neighboring land that is protected agriculture to split some of the farm off and keep it agricultural zoned and the remainder become community residential. So if you have any questions for me or, any other discussion,
How large is the parcel you're talking?
331 acres.
Okay. Carla would take note of that, and we'll,
How many acres? I saw the map and I know where the farm is.
I just did an arbitrary line.
Right.
Because that would knock off all the woodland, that would knock off the area that would be next to protected lands. So, maybe I can work with the mapping and come into the planning office, and really, I just picked an arbitrary line.
Okay. And basically what this does is just gives a buffer
It
between
gives
the
me
CR.
control of the buffer.
Right,
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay.
very good.
Okay.
makes sense to me, but I assume we'll make note of this and we'll discuss it at a future date.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball.
Thanks, Mr. Pittman.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Mr. Trey Jones. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Trey Jones, 30396 Duck Puddle Road, Kennedyville. So, over the last 6 years, I was fortunate enough to purchase 2 tracts of ground on the north end of the county on Carroll Clark Road, each being 90 acres, each consisting of employment center zoning. One parcel or tract is a quarter-mile from the 301 corridor, which I have no problems with. It is entirely employment center. It's this warehousing, truck terminal, and so on. The other tract is a 90-acre parcel. It borders Carroll Clark Road and 313. It currently has 30 acres zoned AZD, bordering the 313, and the remainder of it heading back towards 301, about 58 acres, is employment center. The property, one being it's a mile away from the corridor, one, it's on the outermost part of your map that's being presented. It seems like it's pretty far. I don't see the future of it being developed out there with the condition of Carroll Clark Road being one of them. It's a highly productive area for agriculture. Perhaps if I mentioned any of the Quail Run Nursery lands, the current Jones Family Farm lands up there, this is the kind of area that I'm talking about, very flat, some of Kent County's finest soils. Unfortunately, it has that employment center line that is running through it. I guess it came off an old grid map or something like that, but it kind of dissects the property. On May the 6th, I wrote a letter requesting a zoning change. We would like to see it put as ag, all AZD. The portion of it that is in employment center, it just doesn't fit quite right. I think by the time we meet all the setbacks, there's a slight blue line stream that runs in that portion of it. By the time we meet that setback, I don't see the benefit of what's left to be developed. We don't want to develop anyhow. We would much rather probably pursue a preservation. And being at the most east corner, I don't feel that it's going to take much away from your proposed map. To add to that, we have a similar request, or you guys do, of my direct neighbor with the same situation. I think they may be asking for 20-some acres of a zoning change back to ag and give up the employment center. So,
Carl,
Not-
you're taking note of this, and we'll give the planning office time to
Yeah.
evaluate the request, and then we'll discuss it further.
okay,
But thank you very
All
much
right,
for
thank you.
coming in.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Trey.
That's the only 2 on the sign-up list. Is anyone else who may not have, or who forgot to sign, that would like to speak on this issue? Tom, I guess that,
We would close the hearing, but we would leave the record open until the end of the day on Friday for the acceptance of any more written comments.
and for the 2 that spoke here today, you can be assured that we will allow the planning commission to take a look at what of your requests, and we'll be in touch with you. And we appreciate you coming in. Thank you. So that I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for proposed Code Home Rule Bill 4-2024, and for the record to remain open until 12 noon on Friday, July 12th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. This public hearing is adjourned. Thank you all. Now, for our appointments, I'm going to take it just a little out of order here, just a little bit. Mr. Joe Manning is here from town of Millington. I don't think this will take quite as long. And then we'll take Dan Matson.
Good morning.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. So I think we're back about the ditch, the Drainage Association.
What did you just call us?
I didn't call you anything. I have been known to be called that, though, and I will admit to it. I probably even act like it, but that's okay. The council sent you a letter June 11th explaining what they plan to do and what they would like to do, and that they support the Ditch Association. The next step, honestly, is to sign the agreement with Case, or put it out to bid, make sure who we're gonna get to do all the 3 steps. Plus Tom told me I need to get a petition from from a percentage of the taxpayer saying they agree to dissolve this association. I'm working on that. It's a little harder to come up with a petition than I thought, which I may need to talk to Tom some more about, but we'll get there too. So I guess when I know there's funds in the account, Shelley and I talked about it, those are funds that were paid from taxpayers' money. That's part of their property tax bill every year. And it's an accumulation because we haven't done any maintenance because the cost is so high. So we want to take that and use that as a portion to pay for this whole thing in the beginning.
And your request is not to do the work, it's to evaluate the job, is that correct?
Yes, this first phase is to go in and evaluate all the stormwater structures.
And you assume that's going to be somewhere around $15,000, and the town is going to put, or the Drainage Association is probably putting up half of it, and they're asking us to put up the other half.
Right, it's actually going to be approximately $45,000. I'm hoping to get a search grant from USDA for the 30, and that leaves a $15,000 balance, which would be half from the county and half from the town. So there will be 3 fundings going into it. The town's money obviously coming from the tax association taxes.
Gentlemen, any questions? No. Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve $7,500 of FY 2025 contingency funds for the proposed project as presented today, contingent upon successful funds from the grant that you're going after.
Got a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to make one more change, too. I'm in the schedule. We're going to take Paul Rickard first. Our staff, we like for them to spend as much time with us as we can. Paul, you want to come up?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time this morning. With your permission, I would like to call up a representative of our Master Gardeners to go through a quick PowerPoint presentation on their work here in Kent County, if that's acceptable to you.
Certainly.
Ms. Robson?
I brought my visual aids again, even though, it's a conversation we started last time, so.
Do you have a microphone over there? Okay. You want me to?
My voice usually carries pretty well.
It's the live stream and the recording that we're trying to.
I spent part of the morning with software glitches at my house. I hope it's not my energy. I think you all do know what the Master Gardeners do. This gives you a much broader view of the whole thing. And the people that are involved in it, many of them do a lot more work than I do personally, are dedicated and all volunteer, but all trained. Now, what do I do?
Microphone is hot. Okay. You're on the screen right here. You're just going to hit the up or down.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so up is not going, there we go.
There you go.
Okay. the bottom line of this, university trained, certified, I think I've said all this to you last week, and I showed you what they call a manual, which is actually a tome. We act as bridges between university research and the public, and we are part of a whole host of things. And one thing, I'm, thinking about all the money, I have to say, I really appreciated last time that I was here, and you said something like, talk to everybody else because I'm trying to save you $92,000. I thought, yes. We give service for free that amounts to approximately $29,000 worth of service to the county and to the residents. So, if you could plug that into your thought, please. But we're not a garden club. Free educational programming. We develop free instructional educational materials, and we organize and conduct public seminars on a whole host of things. One of the really important things for me personally is the climate resiliency, which I know is something that's becoming more and more a mandate for municipalities all over the place. We do plant clinics, extension service information booths, which several people in this room do in great dedication, even when it's 100 degrees practically, and set up at the farmers market every Saturday. And there are as many as 100 people that come every week to have their questions answered at these booths. Advisory and hands-on service to county residents of all demographics. In fact, this whole presentation, the PowerPoint, was done by one of our volunteers, Diane, sitting there in the purple. Service and advice support for gardens at local schools and libraries. And another issue that's very much part of the county, and particularly a county that's as rural as ours and dependent on food insecurity and worried about food insecurity, is that we start to teach people, like Sabine did with the school garden, about how you grow your own food. It's an enormous sense of an empowerment for an awful lot of people that wouldn't even think about it. Oh, the Baywise thing, that's what I do. Because it has to do with land stewardship on all fronts. It has to do with trying to make every property resilient in terms of holding stormwater on the property rather than sluicing off and being part of flooding. It's also pollinator friendly. It's how we grow our food. You all know this because we're an agricultural county. There's our 29,000 and change. Here are some pictures that really do show the people at work. Can you all see those okay? It's all those people, and these, that's the school garden, I'm pretty sure, isn't it? Yeah, no. Youth programs, summer, science night, Hort lecture series. And there's also the home and telephone consultations that people do, the plant clinic. Actually, it says bi-weekly here, but a lot of times it's weekly.
Yeah, in the past it was bi-weekly, now it's weekly.
Yeah, and it's attended. I mean, people come, and actually my husband's a beekeeper now that he's retired from sea, and he occasionally will go with his demo hive with all the bees in it, which is lovely. It's a real draw, and then people suddenly start to think about some of the questions that they need answered on their own property.
Steel Pond Church needs some bees removed.
He gets a lot of calls. He's got, maybe they're his bees. He's got 2 hives down there at the Roberts house.
Okay.
But I can recommend some other people too. Sam Beachy has a great big thing that they
Oh, yeah.
went up and did. Oh, you know Sam? Okay, good. Yeah, they got up and took the bees out of the roof at John Sprinkle's house.
Okay.
They all have such fun. Annual seed swap, tomato tasting. We participate in the Tea Party, Earth Day festivals, Legacy Day, and it is such it's an integral and organic part of an entire demographic within this. I mean, huge range of people in this community. There, I love the pictures, as does everybody else. The one in the center here, is the library garden, which I imagine all of you have seen. It is a demo garden that's been worked on unbelievably hard by a number of people in here. Scott, I think you have spearheaded a lot of this. There's the Master Gardener tent. Oh, there's my husband with his bees down there, lower right, chatting away. Apple Fest, Pumpkin Fest. I did that with Sakithia last year, and I dragged the pumpkin vine that had volunteered in my compost heap over to the park at Galena and strung it around because I had pumpkins and blooms, and you can see exactly how the whole thing works. So it isn't just pumpkins arrive in the grocery store and you buy them and take them home. No, it's all connected. That's the thing. And in a way, that's the point we're trying to make with all of this. It's all connected, what all we do as a community and as an educational force and looking after the stewardship of our land and property. It's all connected. It's all connected to our health. Seed swap, plant clinics. We had, at one point, Doug Talame came down, and he's been like Mr. Pollinator. That, I don't know whether that name means anything to you. He's emeritus professor at UD. He's an bug guy, and he's got a national organization, a homegrown national park, and that is to convince people to understand about the fact that if we do nothing, we need to add pollinator corridors for people. We need to add habitat and for people. For what I think of as kin is all the little critters. And the pollinators, I want food. 4-H, there they are, golly. All those kids that all of these people in this program benefit and touch, and then therefore their family and their parents and their pantries. And here are the demonstration gardens. There's the public library garden, which is just wonderful. And they need maintaining, obviously, and that's what the Master Gardeners do for free. Here's another educational thing for the Christian Academy, teaching these kids how to grow food. Look at all that lovely kale and lettuce. Pollinator garden at Ajax Park. That is something that I'm really not familiar with, but I think that some people in this audience can speak to much better than I can. But the apiary as well, obviously the bees, but it's the pollinators as well, since the honeybees really aren't native to this country. But they're honey. Eastern Neck Wildlife Refuge. Again, it's to restore habitat. It's to restore the whole food chain. And the Kent Family Center, which I know Sakithia, there's a picture down there on the right-hand side. Sakithia is there, and she talks and reads to the kids, so she incorporates not only the reading and the stories and stuff with the kids, but also the fact that it's, planting and growth and all that kind of, and the food, how it all chains together, and how they can each have a hand in dealing with it. And there's a Baywise certification that we did 2 weeks ago now. There we go. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Commissioners, all of what they're doing is currently in jeopardy here in Kent County. If we can put up that other slide. Over the last several years, our office has been short on funding. Some of that had to do with an 8.75 budget reduction that happened in FY 2021, while we also got a COLA from the state. And so that started the loss, the fiscal drop-off. Then in FY '22, we came before the last set of commissioners and requested some additional funding to take our agriculture agent and raise that to a tenure track position, which the commissioners did do that. And so in 2021, there was about $15,000 that we were underfunded. In 2022, it was about $15,000 we got back, but that was in a specific position. Then in FY 2023, we had asked for additional funding to raise our .5 horticulture educator, who was Sabine Harvey. She had resigned at the end of 2022, December 2022. So in the FY 2023 budget, we had asked to increase some of our funding so we could take that either to a .8 or a 1.0 FTE. And we ended up being flat funded that year, but we also had 10% in COLAs and merits that year that we did not get. So this, as you can imagine, starts cutting into, we had an open position, and I can't not pay the people that are there a COLA or a merit increase. So that funding had to come from somewhere, and so it started to eat away at that position. And so this past year, I asked to please restore that, the COLAs and merits, so we could get back to that .5 where we'd been for about 14, 15 years. And we weren't given that for 2024. And so in 2025, I basically asked for the bare minimum, and that was basically funded. But that left us with a decision on what do we do about the horticulture program assistant position and the implications of Sabine's resignation so the Kent County Master Gardener program has historically always been under the Queen Anne's County program because we did not have a full-time Master Gardener coordinator. So the Queen Anne's position would oversee, but when Sabine was here, that she would assist with all of that. And now, with Sabine being gone 2.5 years, or 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, and we also have had growth in our Master Gardener cadre that lives and wants to work here in Kent County. We were no longer able to assign any other duties as assigned to this educator in Queen Anne's County. And so in talking with our state program leader and our statewide Master Gardener coordinator, they had made the determination that without further funding that we can't continue with hosting the program here due to the fiscal and personnel costs. And so to go back to the .5 FTE, if the county would grant $20,353, we can take what I have left on that line, incorporate that additional funding that would allow me to get to that half-time person, at which point I would rework the position through the university and make that a part-time Master Gardener coordinator and horticulture educator. Once that was approved, we could then seek to hire for that position. But I thank you for your time this morning. I know that you guys have difficult decisions to make every year, and I don't envy that position, frankly, myself. But I do appreciate the hard work that you do every year, because I know it is.
Thank you very much.
And I'm happy to entertain questions.
No, I don't have any questions. I guess just comments on, the presentation was great. Thank you for the, to not only inform us, but to inform whoever's listening in the public. And I appreciate everything you guys do, particularly the education of the, younger people in this community that frankly, I think just need that knowledge. So thank you guys.
John, you got any comments or
I
questions?
do. I'm assuming the lack of funding, you're talking about state funding?
No,
What are you talking about?
the county funding, yes, sir.
And the commissioners were asked, because I don't recall,
FY '23, they were asked very specifically about changing that position into a faculty level, either at .8 FTE, 4 days a week, or full-time.
but in FY
Correct.
'25,
Correct.
I don't recall seeing a request at all.
There was not an FY '25.
Okay. Well, number one, the presentation that was presented here today was very informative. I have personally witnessed a lot of the good work that this Master Gardeners do. I think it's a very worthy program. They do it, like Albert just said, a lot for our youth, a lot for our environment overall. So I think it's a beneficial program. I think it's something that we need here in Kent County. And I'm going to make a motion, and we'll see if we get a second. I think you probably will. But I'll make a motion that we contribute $20,353 to the Master Gardener Program. And I would ask that in future years that we actually get a formal request in writing or a presentation so that we can consider this during the budget process.
Yes, sir.
Before I call,
This
And that
would be
would-
fund,
that would
from
be-
fund balance.
before I call for a second, I just wanted to say too, you know, I've been here for a long time, and when I was thinking that when Sabine left, Sabine Harvey, I thought that was, I don't know that it was ever, if it was explained to us, I didn't understand. I thought when she left, that was the end of the program, to be quite honest with you. But so, I will certainly ask for a second.
Second.
And so we got a motion and a second.
And
That
this information, or this funding should come from fund balance.
got a motion. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Good work.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rickard.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now we have Mr. Dan Matson, who is our Public Works Director, and KCI Engineering to give us a project update on our Millington wastewater treatment facility.
Yes. This is a brief update memo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dan, when this is over with, you'll hang around just for a minute. I got a couple of things I want to run by you real quick.
Absolutely.
I guess what I'm telling you that so you won't let me forget.
No problem. So joining me today is Dan String from KCI, who has been managing the Millington wastewater treatment plant design project. I believe it's been about 3 months since
Yeah, somewhere around there.
since the previous update, so we wanted to have Dan come in today, provide a formal update to the commissioners on where we are. So with
Very
that-
good. We're looking forward to it.
So thanks for having me, and my name's Dan String. I'm the Senior Project Manager and Water and Wastewater Practice Leader for KCI Technologies in this region. So I've had the pleasure of working on this project. Last time I was here, we were kind of just in the early phases of that. I'm a water wastewater guy, so I can talk about it for a long period of time, but I don't want to bore you guys either. I know you kind of want to hear where we are, where we're going. So I only bring along a stack of drawings to let you know that there has been progress. We're moving along.
Well, that was a good sign when you come up here with that whole fistful of plans there. I thought, well, something's got straight here.
This is probably about a third of the size of what the final set of documents will look like. So this is mainly the initial civil layout and all of the process, what I refer to as the treatment process drawings. So where we are is we're, and as mentioned in the summary here, we're nearing 60% on what I call the process. This is where we're picking out all the equipment, laying out all the tanks, all the pumps, the piping, things like that. And that allows all the other, what we refer to as subdisciplines, to do their work following that. So all the electrical engineers, the instrumentation, the structural design to actually design the tanks, all the other pieces that have to go into the project are all based on what are in these documents. So that's where the other 2/3 of the paper will come from eventually. So we're pretty much on schedule here. We had a little, I mentioned in here, the MDE outfall is a big thing to us. So if you recall, this project is to demolish the existing Millington wastewater treatment plant relocate it further to the west, which means we need a new discharge point. It's still going to go into the same receiving water, into the Chester River. It's going to be further downstream, which we see as a benefit because it's, there's more water for it to go into. We're also increasing the level of treatment tremendously. So the overall level of treatment is going to be compliant with the state requirements. We think everything's going to work out, but anytime you get a new discharge permit, MDE has to go through their process. They had some challenges on their side. We expected to hear beginning of June. We checked in with them about 2 weeks ago because we hadn't heard, and they said they had some internal issues. They promised us an answer within about 2 weeks, which would put it this Friday. So we're hoping to hear something from them on that. So that's one of the kind of outliers that we're not fully sure about, but we expect it to work out pretty well. We've been working, since the last time we were here, we've been working on not only the on-site process drawings, but also we have to do a force main conveyance from Millington out to this western portion. So all the survey's been completed for that. We've been looking at utility conflicts, looking at the alignment of where that force main is going to go along the road, and looking at maybe a couple potential options to save a little bit of money there as well. So that has moved along nicely, and we've got a few things to go over in the next couple weeks. We've been coordinating with the developer and the landowner of where the treatment plant is supposed to be going. We've been going back and forth and trying to make sure that it fits both the county's needs, the town's needs, and also the long-term plan for the area. There's a few things that we've gone back and forth with. We actually we're planning a coordination meeting next week. So trying to keep that regular coordination going with them. In general, the site is looking good. We're happy with how things are laid out. There's a chance that we might try and slide it a little bit. It's a big property. We only need about 5 acres. We don't need a large parcel. So they're asking if maybe we can adjust the location of that. That'll be determined next week. And then we have that's when we can turn all the sub-disciplines loose, so that they can really move forward. So that's a key milestone for us. On the next steps for design, I mentioned the coordination meeting. We're still on target for a 90% design, which means that's when we would be submitting to MDE in the fall. So that is still on schedule. There's a lot of land use permitting that, including critical areas, that will be going along in parallel to that. Unfortunately, when you do a facility like this, you have to get permission from a lot of people. And MDE is really looking at the treatment plant part, or the treatment part of it, the wastewater part of it, and then you have to deal with all the other pieces that go along with it, including environmental permitting. So those will go along in parallel. If all of that goes smooth, we are still on target to advertise early 2025 for construction. It is about a 2-year construction period. We're still estimating that. And again, the discharge permitting in parallel is one of the things that is a little bit, it doesn't happen very often, so that's a little bit of an unknown. So
What was that you said?
that's the discharge permit that I mentioned earlier, because it's not often that they issue new discharge permits, but we're really relocating one in the same receiving body. So
and when you've already pointed out the fact that the discharge is going to be treated much better than what's being treated today.
Yeah.
It's downstream, which makes it even better. And then the third part is that it's not in a flood zone anymore. You would certainly think that somebody would say, that's a great idea, and we should hurry up and try to get that done.
I agree.
Because it makes perfect sense. So that's the part, when you deal with government, that's the part that bothers me. I had the same discussion with the critical areas a while back about a project that was doing all the right things, making improvements, but they had to jump through as many hoops as if it was something that was really not a good project. People should be rewarded for doing the right thing, in my opinion. But who am I?
That's the way we feel on the engineering side too. But Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, and I think on a different project, or if timing wasn't a big factor on this project, we might look to nail down the discharge permit ahead of time, but we're operating that in parallel to expedite the project, keep everything moving as quick as possible.
Well, the idea that that treatment plant is a couple of years in building it,
Yeah.
from what I understand from the people that are interested in this project, the developers and stuff, that they can live with the fact that it's going to take a couple of years, because there's things that they can do in the meantime to get ready. But what they want to see is a shovel in the ground to know that we, the commissioners, aren't going to change our minds. before they start investing a lot of money. And so that, I think that's very important that we work to try to get that shovel in the ground.
Absolutely.
And then if it takes a couple of years to build it, there's plenty that the developers can do in the meantime. Roads, all that kind of, laying pipes. And so we're really hoping to see a time when we can say, accept a bid and have a little groundbreaking, and then we're moving forward. So we appreciate you trying to get done as soon as you can.
Yeah, and we're very cognizant of the fact that there is excitement and urgency about getting this project moving in a lot of ways. But like you said, the construction's one thing, but we got to get that shovel in the ground to get it started. So we're pushing hard to make sure that we get that as soon as we can.
Very good.
I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I love talking about wastewater, so.
You want another job?
I'm always up for other jobs.
No, but I don't know. It's very encouraging, and and you're saying that we could possibly go out for bid when?
So we're hoping that I always go with, early 2025, right? So, springtime's a great time to bid. You don't want to be too late because, a lot of contractors will fill up their schedules. And so you want to get it out early in the year so that they can start work while the weather's good and get some things done so that when the weather's bad, they have other things to do. So that's an ideal time. The caveat is that we have to get through all the permits. And I think from a design standpoint and a technical standpoint, we're going to be fine. What I'm more concerned about is all the permits that we have to go to. The second biggest thing, obviously, is funding. And so, getting all the funding in place for a large project like this, and what's most likely going to be multiple sources of funding, is not easy. And so there are, I do mention a few things at the bottom as far as parallel processes for the county, that things are sort of outside the engineering control. I can control certain things, I can't control all of them. So, the rezoning, subdivision, and land acquisition is in process. The funding obviously is a big one. We certainly will assist with that, but those processes are complicated and time takes a while. So that's why it's important to also get them started now, and they are all in process. But permitting and funding are the things that I think will determine when this project hits the shovel.
Very good.
All right.
Any questions, gentlemen? Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yes, couple
Yes.
things,
I
Dan.
forgot.
There was one of our public landings yesterday had an incident. A family was putting their boat overboard, and when the husband is back in the trailer down the ramp, you generally give the line on the bow of the boat to the wife or something, and they walk out the pier as the husband's backing the boat down. Well, yesterday, the lady that was walking the line back out the ramp stepped on the edge of the board, and the other end flew up in the air, and overboard she went. Luckily, she didn't fall in the boat. She fell down between the boat and the pier, and she went completely underwater, hit her arm on the boat, which was, we were very lucky that she didn't fall in the boat, hit her head. and hurt herself.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, I know this for a fact because that lady was my daughter. But what I'm getting to, this is the second incident like this that's happened since I've been, in the last couple of years. I think we had an incident down Green Lane one time. So I guess what I'm asking is so that we can hopefully avoid something like this in the future. And look, that was an accident. Nobody could see it coming. But it's happened twice. And what I would just suggest is that we're not mowing much grass now, obviously because of the weather. We could send some fellows around to go out on something where we have these boat ramps and just double check. And I don't know whether whoever built it didn't put the nails in that one side, or they deteriorated, they rusted, whatever happened. Just let's send a crew out to wherever we launch boats at and just double check if we need to put a few more nails in there.
Sure. We could absolutely start a
It's because
inspection program. Yes.
they're heavily used this time of the year, a lot of
Absolutely.
people around. So let's take a second look at those ramps.
Sure, absolutely.
Because
That's no problem.
that could have been a real issue if somebody fell down and in the boat, struck their head on the motor. We were very lucky that it didn't. But I just want to make sure we do something to avoid that ever happening again. Second thing I wanted to run by you, I got a call from and Carl, you might listen in on this as well. Bill McCluskey, I think his name is trying to build a house on Little Neck Farms, where there's a housing development already, and they have their own septic system out there. You're probably familiar with that area. They have a public, the county oversees it, I think, but there's a private sewer system out there that we have to oversee. And this fellow's been trying to build a home. He bought a piece of property. He's trying to build a home. It's been going on for 10 weeks, he told me, and that was a week ago. He's working with Lane Engineering, a well-known engineering firm out of Centerville. And evidently, and I should know this, but I forgot about it, MES doing their work. They're complaining about the nitpicking details of trying to get approval to build this house. I'm experiencing something similar with another project about things that I don't quite understand that's going on. If turning this stuff over to the state is going to set us back, and maybe we need to find a way to do this work ourselves. Either that or speak with them about moving these projects forward. 10 weeks to get a building permit, in my opinion, when you have a building lot that's available to be built on. They were talking about, they're getting questioned about the angle of the property and making sure that the sidewalk has a 6-degree angle to follow the slope of the land and all this. This guy wants to build a house on a piece of property that's available to be built on. I don't think it should take that, it shouldn't be that big a deal. If you could check on that for me, I would certainly appreciate it.
I do believe I am familiar with the specific project you're talking about. And to give you some context, we are using MES for stormwater reviews, and as needed, I've stepped in on a couple projects for either changes in the field that would take them a longer time to review than can be done by a simple meeting on site. I'm happy to go out on site and meet with contractors, developers for things like field changes. This one in particular, a gentleman from Lane called me about 2 weeks ago with some questions and clarifications. And I did have a conversation with our representative from MES on the project. I think since then, he was ill for a couple days. I was on vacation for a couple days, but this is something that I am aware of and intending to have sorted out this week. But in general, our approach would be to bring those services back into the county and out of MES's hands. That's how it worked for a period of time when I was deputy director. And we shifted back to MES when I was the director without a deputy. And now that we have one, working to take that responsibility back into the Public Works Department in order to streamline these things, as well as there are pretty clear and well-defined stormwater standards from the state, but there are certain practical decisions that can be made or suggestions based on local knowledge that I think may be getting a little lost in the shuffle between county residents and MES, and I think we'll be able to streamline that process in the near future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your answer.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yes.
Did you have any questions of us while you're here?
I do not, no.
Your deputy director is working out well, and
Yes, she is.
Very
well.
good, very good. And welcome aboard, and there's plenty for you to do, I'm sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dan, any update on the cleaning of the ditch down in Rock Hall?
We,
As dry as it is.
yes, the roads department, to be frank with you, is eager to get out there. We haven't been able to get in touch with the property owner. As I mentioned when we discussed it last time, we would want a release agreement, a liability.
You contacted me because you were having trouble getting a hold of Mrs. Rennie.
Correct.
Are you calling, and I run into her over the 4th of July, and I said that, I told her, I said, the county's having trouble getting a hold of you. She said you might be calling Swan Creek number. I think she's Spring Cove Marina.
Okay, I can double check and make sure we're calling the right number, yes, absolutely.
Because she seemed like it should not have been any trouble to get a hold of her, but that was her answer to me. She said, Ronnie, some people try to call us Swan Creek, they're located in Swan Creek.
Okay.
She said sometimes but Swan Creek is another out. She said, make sure they're calling Spring Cove Marina. But she is there, so if you can't get her, maybe a visit or something. I mean,
It may
I
be
run into
worthwhile- yeah,
her.
it may
She's
be
not
worthwhile
hard to
just to drop off the
find. I run
agreement.
into her twice over the 4th of July holiday. One at the Civic Center when they had the after the parade and stuff, and I spoke with her. But she's more than willing to talk, and I don't think you'll have a bit of problem with her.
Great. Yeah, it may be most efficient just for us to drop the agreement off at Spring Cove to her attention and get the signature that way so we can get started. But yes, the roads department is,
And if all that doesn't work, I can get a hold of her son-in-law. So, and find out where she is and how we can get together.
absolutely, great.
All right?
Yep.
And as a matter of fact, I actually even run into her son, was here visiting her Friday night at the American Legion. So we can get a hold of her, and when push come to shove, we'll get a hold of her somehow.
Absolutely.
But thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
No problem, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Where,
I think I'm up again.
you are, Tom, you're busy here
Yeah,
today.
Talkie Communications, they would like to have a cable TV franchise, and this would be a new franchise, but it has characteristics of a franchise renewal, because typically when you have a new franchise, the company comes in and they need to build out all their infrastructure. In the case of Talkie, they already have a significant portion of their infrastructure already built because they're offering the internet service. So what they're seeking to do is to use their fiber that they have for the internet service and to add cable TV to that. So they would be running video over their existing services. So it's not something where we have to start, or they have to start from scratch on a build-out. As per your cable TV ordinance, it's a multi-step process. The first step in the process is the applicant has to file an application and a filing fee. That has been done. You are to determine if you think it is in the public interest to go forward with the franchise. If you do, then we would have to give public notice and enter into a franchise agreement. It's my recommendation that if you do want to go forward, that we hold a public hearing, because if you hold a public hearing, there's no question that public notice has been given. And we also did public hearings for Breeze Line, when it was known as Atlantic Broadband, and for Comcast. So you have a precedent set for doing the public hearings. I've also been working with the attorney for Talkie Communications, and we supplied him with the franchise agreements that we had for Atlantic Broadband and Comcast. And he's marked those up, and I've reviewed those, and I believe that there is a document that is acceptable to be the franchise agreement, because it meets the requirements of our ordinance, and it's consistent in many respects with the Atlantic Broadband and the Comcast franchise agreements.
So Tom, if I could just stop you for a minute, what you're describing is like you said, they're already putting the cables in the
Correct.
cable in the ground. They're just adding something else to
Yes.
it other than the internet.
Exactly, exactly. Most of the fiber is already there. Most of the areas where they are going to provide cable TV service, they already have the infrastructure in place. They're simply adding the video or the TV service to the existing internet service. And we require a franchise for cable TV service. A franchise is not required for internet service alone. But if you add TV, you have to have a franchise. So this franchise would only cover the TV. Be similar to what we have for Atlantic Broadband, BreezeLine, and for Comcast. So if you believe that this is in the public interest, you would want to move forward today, direct the clerk to schedule a public hearing. We have a public hearing, and then following that, you can vote to approve the franchise agreement that's been proposed.
Very good.
So this would give the citizens just another option.
Correct. They would have
Yeah.
three choices. They would have Atlantic Broadband, Comcast, and Talkie. And actually, even though we have Atlantic Broadband, now BreezeLine, and Comcast, my understanding is there's not a lot of overlap between Comcast and Atlantic Broadband, that Comcast is more up towards Galena, and Atlantic Broadband is more towards Chestertown. And there are areas where even though we have two franchises, you really can't choose between one or the other. But with Talkie in the mix, there's going to be areas that are already served by an existing franchise, so this would give customers a choice. And then there's going to be some areas where you don't have Comcast and you don't have Atlantic Broadband, where you could get it from Talkie.
Very good.
So it sounds to me like it would be in the public interest.
Yes, no, I agree with you.
Prior to being elected commissioner, I'm assuming that there were some decisions made on allowing Talkie and others to put fiber
Yes.
in the ground.
Yes.
And I don't know a whole lot about fiber, but I'm sure that there's different kinds of fiber, some that might be better than others, or a higher quality or whatever.
Speed, it's mostly speed.
Speed. I'm just wondering, is the fiber that they've been putting in, is it capable of handling this extra service?
I don't have enough personal knowledge to
I don't
answer
either.
that, but I'm assuming it does, because I don't think that Talkie would be investing this much in this service if they didn't have confidence that their fiber network could cover it. I know that they have a similar plan in Queen Anne's County, that they are seeking a franchise in Queen Anne's County as well as Kent, and I think they're a little farther along in the Queen Anne's County one than they are here. But my belief is that they are very confident that the fiber that they have can handle this service.
So it's my understanding the fiber itself isn't different. It's the speed at which the customer buys what product they want. So whether or not they have enough infrastructure in the ground to handle
Speed.
the speed and the cable would be a Talkie question. But
Is there a way we could maybe get them to come in and
I would imagine that they
Share
would
Yeah,
be here for the public hearing.
Hearing.
Yeah, and open for questions. But I will say this, we have two high-speed internet companies, Think Big and Talkie, and they both selling the same product as far as the internet part goes, and all you hear is compliments. All I hear about it is compliments, and
Same here.
so I think if they're thinking about adding this TV piece to it, I tell you, it makes it more attractive to me, because I think we got BreezeLine now,
Right.
and I don't know, but if you got one person that can do it all, it might, personally, I'm looking forward to the public hearing, because I want to learn more about it, like you're talking about, but I bet we'll have them here to they'll be here to promote their product, I imagine, at that public hearing, so.
At our house, we have BreezeLine, so we have internet and TV from BreezeLine. So it sounds to me that this is a business model that is being used in the industry now, that you have internet and TV from the same provider, or you have one provider that could offer both of those services.
And they've become a pretty big outfit here in Chestertown. I mean, I bet they got I've heard 70, 80 employees out here.
It's a bunch.
It's a bunch. You can see them everywhere. so-
Right, you see them around the county laying fiber down. I mean, I've noticed them out there the last couple of
Yeah.
years. They've been working. So
I
if,
would just like to learn more about,
well, where we are
process.
today is if you think this is in the public interest, we move forward, we schedule it for a public hearing, and we can certainly request, it would make sense for the representatives of Talkie to be here at the public hearing to be able to answer questions, because you're not going to approve, the final step in this is to approve the franchise agreement. The draft of that has been prepared, and it's gone through legal review. But you are the ultimate approving authority, so you would have the public hearing, and then after the public hearing, you would make your decision as to whether or not you wish to grant a franchise. And if you have concerns or issues as a result of questions at the public hearing, we can certainly amend the existing draft of the franchise agreement to cover those concerns.
sounds reasonable to me.
Me too, I think. We'll entertain a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion to proceed as recommended by the county attorney.
Do I have a motion and a second? Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Question, Tom, when you're saying when you're calling it a franchise, suppose Think Big wanted to do the same thing. Does this franchise prevent them from doing it?
No, it does not, because the franchises are non-exclusive. So Think Big can come to the county.
And do the same thing?
Do the same thing. However, typically, what the franchises look for is, if we offer one franchise better terms than another, we have to then offer those same terms to the other franchise. The idea is to kind of have a level playing field. But certainly Think Big is welcome. If they wish to get into the TV business, they can come to us, and we would treat them the same as Talkie, because they also have the infrastructure laid out. So even though it would be a new franchise, we would look at it the same way we looked at Talkie.
Now, I'm sure we'll learn that the reason for the public hearing, obviously, is so that we'll all learn more about this, but is there a cost to that franchise?
Yes, they pay a franchise fee
To who?
to the county.
Okay,
As do the other ones that we already have in place.
very good, very good. All right, then the motion was to move this forward to a public hearing. Very good.
So that should take care of it for now, and clerk will schedule a public hearing. We'll have, I said Comcast. I was at a meeting in a town last night where Comcast came in for a franchise, so Talkie will come in for the public hearing. Take it
Very
from
good. Next up, Ms. Pat Merritt is Chief Finance Officer, to hear with the financial statements for the third quarter, and she always comes with a lot of money. She does.
Good news.
She's a
Take
good
credit
news
for it.
lady.
The good news continues, is I
There you
guess I
go.
can
See, I
start.
told you.
So, we'll start with the general fund, and it's pretty much continuing on the track that we saw when we were in our budget conversations. So if you look at the first page, the revenues exceed budget by 1%, which is about $640,000, and the expenses are under budget by a little over $2.6 million, which is 6%. So overall, in the general fund, we're just under $3.3 million favorable to the budget. So we're in track with what we were seeing when we looked at the numbers during budget time. So the next page just kind of talks about the revenue picture. The largest favorable variance are continue to occur in interest income, and that's because our cash balances are up and the rates are up. Property tax revenue is up about 4% over last year, and we're seeing some increases in service charges. On the unfavorable side, the income tax is just slightly lower than last year at 45,000 under budget, and we're seeing a little less in our 911 fees, and I think that's just because they were implemented a quarter later than we had anticipated. So overall, that you can see what contributes to that favorable $640,000 variance. On the next page, if we take a look at the expenses, salaries and benefits continues to be where we're.
I'm going to interrupt you just a minute.
Sure.
That's, so what you're telling us is that we were going to receive roughly $640,000 for the first quarter.
We're ahead of budget by $640,000. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
we're, So
Keep
we're-
in mind that this is we're talking about FY '24.
Right, yes, right. Very good.
right, and the expenses, conversely, we're planning on spending 2.6 million less than budget as we sit here today. Or we have spent 2.6 million less through the first 9 months, is a better way to say it.
Okay.
And where we have not spent that money primarily is $1.2 million of it is in salaries and benefits. And that's the open positions and conversely, the benefit savings that goes along with that. So, I think we're getting closer to fully staffed, but that has contributed to that 1.2 million favorable variance. And then in the operating budgets, there's about a $663,000 favorable variance, and you can see the departments where that's occurring. Gasoline is certainly one place where we've seen savings in those top two categories, highways and sheriff's office that have contributed to them, and there's many other factors. We're also seeing a savings in our transfer out to other funds. We delayed the Wharton and the Millington projects into next year, so that's the $300,000 savings you see there. And water wastewater is coming in under budget, and again, we'll talk about that in a minute, but that's primarily staffing also. So that's kind of the general fund in a nutshell. Next, if we look at the capital projects, we budgeted $4,256,000, and you can see the projects there. And you can see we've actually only spent a little over $80,000 so far. And I think most of these projects have been delayed into next year or future years. So kind of see how those stand. Any questions there? So the next statement is water and wastewater services. And again, our transfer is $184,000.
Let me interrupt you one more
Sure.
time. John, we've had a conversation about the capital projects. With this one, you want to bring that up? And
I can at this time. I was going to wait till you were done, but
you can do that too if you want, but I just seen it on here. It's what brought it to my attention.
I actually asked for some numbers, and I think you guys have seen those numbers as well from Pat. And in the 5-year capital plan that is currently in place, can you go back to the capital plan there, please?
And if you,
You
can
see
roll
there
it
where
up
it
to
says
the-
the Chestertown Business Park Route 213 entrance? That was still in the capital plan, but there needs to be some funding allocated or put in for FY '27, which is what I think the plan is at this point, is that maybe that might occur in FY '27. So I would ask that the capital plan be amended or changed to indicate that project's still there for FY '27.
And so I can amend the 5-year capital plan to put it in FY '27 and send you out a copy later today if you.
That would be
we-
perfect.
We can revise
Do you
it.
need a motion on that, or?
Probably to, for the future plan.
formalizes it.
Yeah.
I think it's
yeah.
a good idea.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the 5-year capital plan dealing with the Chestertown Business Park Route 213 entrance and allocate or place of funding in FY '27 of $450,000 to support that project, which will also, at the time, we'll have to evaluate to make sure that it's going to be supporting economic development for the entire county.
Yeah, when we get to that budget, that would be when you would formally,
We would look at it a little closer. But at least this is our intention at this point, to support that project.
and probably we should also remove it from the fiscal year '24 budget. The next amendment, I'll just include that.
We know it's not going to
We
happen
know it's not
in
gonna happen in 24.
It wasn't included in 25, we know it's not going to happen
Yeah.
then.
And,
But this would,
we hope it happens in '27, but if it doesn't, we can always, we can move any of these around.
absolutely.
This is just our intention at this point.
Okay.
the current
I'll get a
board.
revised 5-year capital plan out to you shortly.
Appreciate that.
So you make a
I made the motion.
make a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on to water wastewater. The transfer in from the general fund for water wastewater is $183,000 less than we thought when we struck the budget. And you can see, I guess there's a little under a $30,000 favorable variance in the revenues, and we have $154,000 favorable variance on the expenses. And if we look at the next page, it gives you a breakdown of where those things are occurring. On the revenue side, it's mostly from equipment sales. They're higher than anticipated, so of that 29, almost 21,000 of it is for equipment sales. And if you look on the expense side, again, the largest part of the favorable variance is occurring in salaries and benefits. And again, that's mostly related to the vacant positions out there. So I think that's all I really had on the financials, unless you have any other questions.
We'll expect you back in here next week, to find us some more.
They'll need a little more time. I'm not saying it's not there, but it takes a little more time to record it.
I do have one other thing that I would like to bring up. I know myself and probably at least one other commissioner, maybe all of us, have received a phone call from some of the fire companies, specifically one really, that I'm aware of. And our fire companies do an awful good service for our community and our county. They routinely received an allocation from the county, dollars annually that we send to them to support their operations and efforts. But I know that there's, due to inflation and a lot of other costs associated with operating fire companies and emergency services, EMS, they are sometimes struggling. And I would like to suggest that we annually donate an additional $400 annually to each fire company, all 7 of them, for a total of $2,800 annually to cover some of their operating costs that they're struggling with.
Okay, so mechanically, I guess, I'm not sure, the appropriation is set in legislation, so this would just be on top of the appropriation? Is that how we'd want to?
Yeah, we don't want it to have anything to
Anything
do with the appropriation. This is a separate, this is
Just a separate funding to, okay,
It's just a donation to help them with their operating expenses,
okay,
because without them, this county would be in really bad shape.
Okay.
If we had to fund fire service and EMS.
yeah. So do we want it to start for FY '25? Is this something that we should send out now? Is it something we should send out?
It's something I think you should send out probably now, and then, again, next budget year.
Next July.
Okay,
So
Next July.
it is a recurring, that'll be fund balance as opposed
It'd be
to,
recurring, it'd come out, this 2,800 will come out of fund balance.
okay. and, we'll draft some kind of letter to explain what the check is
Just to
for.
assist them with their operating expenses.
Call it miscellaneous, if a miscellaneous contribution, if you want, they'll know where to put it.
Okay,
And it's clearly up to them to where they put it in.
Yeah.
And we want each fire company, whether there's 6 fire companies and there's the rescue squad, it's important that each one of them get treated the same, with the same dollar value.
okay. No problem, we can probably get that out in the next check run. So,
That would be great.
Very good.
We need a motion for that.
I believe a motion was just
Did
put
they
on
make
the
it?
floor.
I think,
We did.
was it seconded?
I don't know that we had a second.
Yeah, second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay, we'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing that I want to bring up publicly is that, a couple weeks ago, there was an article in a newspaper about a project that MDE wants us to do out at the landfill. And I've questioned it, and my colleagues have supported it so far, but we wanted what we were asking for was for MDE to come in and publicly explain to us why they think it's important that we spend $4.5 million building a plant out there to pump. And if I don't, look, let me first of all say that I'm not an expert in this, but there's some things that I don't understand. I don't think it's asking too much for somebody to explain to me the reason we're doing something before I agree for us to spend $4.5 million of the county's money. And also, we'll have to operate this thing for probably eternity. Operators, the whole thing. So I've asked for an explanation. MDE has decided that they're not coming and talking about this thing publicly. But they will talk to me privately, which I disagree with adamantly. But to move it forward, I'm going to be speaking to them tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I want public to know that's not me, that's them calling for this private meeting. But even then, if I'm not convinced that it's a worthwhile project, well, we'll have to talk about it. But I don't want anybody to think I'm doing something in private, because that's not the way we operate here in Kent County. So I just wanted to say that, because I'm not used to doing things in private, and I'm not going to start. But I'm being asked to by the state, and I'm going along with it. If they explain it to me and I fully understand it, I'll be the first to say, you're right, I was wrong, let's move forward. But it hadn't happened yet, but we'll hear what they got to say tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So, but I'm not the one asking for a private meeting either. All right, County Administrator.
Okay, thank you. 2
I
items.
think Jim Miller first.
Oh, yes, sorry.
I'm sorry, Jim.
I was ready to jump in there.
We were trying.
We were trying to get rid of you. If you hadn't said something.
That was my fault, I
figured
apologize.
getting rid of me would made sense, but Jem was here, and I figured you'd want to talk to
And
her.
if I could just tip off the county administrator, I don't know if you've seen this, but one of the items you have, Caroline County
I
just
just
sent an
saw it.
email. Okay, good.
Thank you.
So, good morning, thank you. And again, getting rid of me, I totally got, but I brought Jen along, so I figured you would want to talk with her.
No, I'm not a big fan of me either.
They love you. We're here this
Big fan that
morning.
you're here, and your husband's here.
Yes, I am as well. It could have been a much worse situation.
What do you need, Sandra?
Oh, I don't need anything, I was just letting Jen know that the PowerPoint's up and that
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
You'll recall, last fall, we were before you to talk about some policy changes related to retiree health insurances. And we went through, kind of lengthy conversations and provided information. We then, including things like creating an HRA so that we could handle the retiree health payments and do things like that. We met with the retirees, or as many as were available, on December 19th to explain everything that we were doing and all the changes that were being made. And as everything that was related to the current group of retirees, was fine. Everybody understood what we were doing. And then Jen spent several months getting everybody on board, getting them enrolled, doing all the kinds of stuff. One question was raised at that time about how we were going to handle reimbursements for future retirees, and the commissioners agreed that we would revisit that, talk through it. Jen did some substantial research on the subject to get to the point where we now believe that we have what's before you today is the rest of the plan. The current retirees, settled issue, everybody's in place, everybody's got the reimbursements they're supposed to be getting, and that's moving along nicely. But we have some slight policy change for future retirees. We wanted to present that part to you this morning. With that, Jen has prepared a PowerPoint to walk through the key items for you, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So any retirees that retired prior to July 1, we're not making any changes. What they are currently being reimbursed for will continue. Okay, so their Medicare Part B premiums, their Medicare deductible, their supplemental health and prescription premiums, and then the county-sponsored dental premiums and vision for your over 65. None of that's changing. Everything that they currently have will remain the same. For the under 65, again, nothing for them is changing. They will continue to contribute to the payment of their county-sponsored medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurances and relatable deductible expenses at the same contribution rate as active employees. Again, these are the things that all the retirees prior to July 1 are currently being reimbursed for, and we plan on continuing that for them.
July 1, 2023.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So this is where the changes start. So retirees on or after July 1, 2023, the county will continue, will reimburse for medical, prescription, dental, and vision coverages as long as they participated in the county health plans for a minimum of 5 years immediately prior to retirement. So then they can carry those into their retirement. The county shall continue to contribute to the payment of the continuation of the following elected expenses, and their contribution rate will be the same as active employees for the remainder of their lifetime. So your over 65 crowd, we're going to continue to reimburse their Medicare Part B medical insurance premiums, their Medicare deductible, their supplemental prescription premiums, and then the county-sponsored dental and vision premiums. The only thing that we're omitting from this is the reimbursement of their supplemental medical insurance.
And this item is the one that was actually raised as a question, and we were all, the commissioners and us were asked to look at that subject back in December. One of the original thoughts at the time was to cease reimbursement for the Medicare expenses and continue reimbursements for the supplementals, or what people kind of generically call Medigap coverages. As Jen went through her research, and then she and I looked at the data and then discussed it with Shelley, it turned out that in the long run, in the interest of the county and for the expenses of the county, it would be better for us to reimburse for the Medicare costs and not the Medigap, the supplementals. And that's the one change, that's the key change in this particular slide. We switched direction on it because it turned out that it was going to be more fiscally responsible to reimburse the Medicare and not the supplemental. Because the supplemental fluctuates so much.
Yes.
And yes, depending on the individual, it could be a minimal cost compared to an astronomical cost.
Right, so I give
Right,
you
because
an
the
ex-
supplementals are through private coverages, and as we all know, private insurance carriers go wherever the heck they want to go with their pricing.
Right, so you have like, what I did is I did a census of basically every retiree we have and what we're paying for their expenses. And you have some retirees that have Medigap coverages where we're paying, their monthly premium is $298, where you have retiree B who theirs is $166. And they're also age banded. So when they hit a milestone, their premiums, or an age milestone, and I don't know what those are mandated by whatever Medigap program they're through, Care First, Cigna, whoever it may be. It's usually, I think, in the 5-year mark. They also increase premiums that way. So there's really no way for us to cap the Medicare, or I'm sorry, the Medigap premiums. And, with the Medicare, it's straight across the board for everyone.
And at age 65, by law, if you're not currently working,
Full-time, yes.
you have to sign up for Medicare. And
Yes,
if
sir.
you don't, you'll get a nice
Get a
fine.
bill.
You'll get a fine.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, the way I understand it is that this kind of stabilizes the cost to the county for years to come,
Yes.
where it's affordable as opposed to maybe becoming
Yes, we'll be much more.
obsolete.
Yeah, much more able to predict our costs, our future costs versus by using,
And we can still take
reimbursing the Medigap, the supplemental medical insurance, just because it is private medical insurance, so they can charge whatever they want. Medicare takes into account, inflation, all like the, cost of groceries, things like that, your cost of living expenses. So it is more straight line across the board. And it would be the same premium for every retiree.
So the Medigap is the only thing you're talking about?
Right, we will not reimburse for the Medigap health insurance. We'll reimburse for the Medicare health insurance. And that was a switch from what we originally talked about last fall, where we thought that we might be in a better financial position for the county to reimburse the other way around. But, and in all fairness, the question was raised, and you all said, yeah, we will take a deeper dive into it. Jen did a phenomenal job of doing the research and looking at what the potential would be going forward, and came back and said, I think it's in the best interest of the county in general, the expenses for the county, to do it the other way around. And that's why we're bringing that forward to you.
I did a census of like 2 years prior. And you can see that by reimbursing the supplemental Medigap, or supplemental medical insurance, it continuously climbs at around $2,000 to $1,500 every year. The Medicare Part B, it averages between like $900 to $1,000. So it's not a huge savings, but it is a savings that I think in the long run will be more financially feasible for the county moving forward. And that is my personal recommendation as someone who plans on retiring from the county.
And it's certainly not an astronomical amount either on the retiree.
No, there's other ways that, no, and they have to have the Medicare Part B
Right.
regardless.
Right.
So the supplemental is just to pick up, so say, retiree A doesn't go to the doctor ever. They probably are gonna pick a much more basic supplemental plan that isn't as rich as, a retiree that has, several health issues. They're probably gonna pick a much more rich plan. So depending on what they pick, that could affect them in a way. But since we're not reimbursing, they may pay more closely attention. There's very few retirees that we have that don't have a very rich plan, so.
I'm going to ask one, ask if we do one thing, is just to give us a week or two to think about it. Plus, I'm going to make an appointment because I'd probably understand this less than anybody at this table. I don't quite understand. I'd like to just sit down. I'll make an appointment to come speak with Jen or you, one of you, and have it explained to me so I thoroughly understand it. I'm not saying I'm against it or for it. I appreciate this conversation, and I'll make sure that I get to sit down with you before the next meeting or two, whenever you want to reschedule it, to ask for a decision, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah,
that okay?
absolutely. I mean, we know it's been a complicated
I-
subject that we've been
I
working on
just-
for a long time.
We want to make sure we do it right.
When it comes to this stuff, I'm not that knowledgeable, and I'd like to learn a little more about it before we make a decision.
Well, let me tell you, I'm very well versed considering my age and eligibility for Medicare.
Jen is
So-
now the subject matter expert on this subject. Even if she didn't want to become one, she is.
I am one, yeah.
So we'll go through the remainder of the slides
Because
so
there
you
are
see the
some
rest
other
of the
minor
information.
things.
And then absolutely we'll do that. You can take this as the information session. We'll go through whatever detail you need on one-on-ones if anybody else wants that. And we'll come back to you for, a request for a motion. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Jen, keep going.
So anyone for retirees on or who retired on or after July 1 of 2023 and are under 65, will be able to continue their current benefits into retirement. And we're going to continue, the county will then continue to contribute to their medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurances that are offered through the county at the same contribution rate as active employees until they reach 65. And at that point, they have to move to Medicare, and we'll switch them to the over 65 plan, okay?
Unless they're still working.
Unless, yep, there's a clause in there for that, yep. So the health reimbursement arrangement, I think a lot of our retirees are really happy with this program. They seem to be getting their money very quickly. So the over 65, the health reimbursement account, the HRA, is a plan that we're using to reimburse the retirees for their qualified expenses. So the over 65 submit eligible expenses to the HRA for reimbursement, and their reimbursements are processed that day unless you submit them after 3 o'clock. And then they are reimbursed either by direct deposit or by check, depending upon the retiree's preference.
And we've had that operational how long now, Jen?
It's July, 7 months. 7 months. I think we have some retirees who are doing it on their own. Some that we are doing it for them. We kind of kept it the same for them to minimize all the changes that we implemented, because I'm sure as you're aware, we kind of uprooted their entire lives when it came to this. So to make the change flow as simple as possible for them, they just submit in most of them, the 3 documents that they need: their Medicare Part B statement that shows their annual Medicare Part B premium, their coupon books, whatever prescription plan they have for their supplemental prescription, and their supplemental medical statements, monthly statements. And they just submit them to our office, and we submit them for them on their behalf. Which is kind of how they used to do it, except we're only reimbursing a percentage, and a different company is reimbursing instead of us going through the finance office.
Some of them have gotten very comfortable with the process, and they're doing their own uploads. As Jen mentioned, if they do the upload before 3 o'clock on a given day, it's being processed that day. If they've agreed to go on direct deposit, the money hits their accounts within a couple of days, or a check gets cut. A few of the folks still want to receive a live check, but a lot of the folks have gone on direct deposit with it because they were accustomed to direct deposit even when they were active employees and they were getting their payroll that way. So we've heard, I would say, the vast majority positive responses. A few of the folks aren't as comfortable with the technology and feel better about bringing or sending their papers in to Jen and letting Jen doing the upload for them. And that's a service that we promised last year that we would continue to do for the retirees, and that has continued.
It must be working very well, because we have not, I think I'm speaking from all three of us, that we haven't received any complaints, so it must be working okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No
Very
complaints, but when this appeared on the public agenda, I did get a phone call. But I reassured those folks that
The current
everything
retirees.
Didn't
was
pertain to
remaining
them.
the same.
Much credit to
and it was a
Jen
fair-
for making this work.
It was a fair request, but I too, like Ronnie, I've heard nothing but positive comments.
Good. Try to make it as
That's just-
seamless as possible for them. So then the under 65, we don't have an HRA for our under 65 group, and that's because they are on our county plan still. So they continue to submit their reimbursements and payments to the HR department. So we are still reimbursing the under 65's deductibles. So their EOBs, they still submit just like the active employees. And then we invoice them for their health, dental, and vision and prescription costs. And they pay us monthly, 6 months, whatever they prefer to do. So spousal coverage. So and this is a change. So anyone retiring on or after July 1 of 2023 may elect spousal coverage as adopted by the county commissioners on October 17, 2027, and it's effective on November 1st of 2027. So as long as the 2017, excuse me, sorry. The retiree, as long as the retiree began employment with the county prior to November 1st of 2017, excuse me.
You're really trying to get to
I don't want to go
2027
back.
with this,
I don't want to
aren't
go
you?
back. The retiree had spousal coverage for a minimum of 5 years immediately prior to the retirement date. It previously was 7 years. We lowered it to 5 years. And then in the event that the spouse meets the two above requirements, the county shall contribute to the payment of their his or her medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurances and deductible at the same rate as active employees. In the event that they don't meet those requirements, the coverage is only limited to just the retiree.
And to point out, Jen mentioned that 5 years is a change. Previously it had been 7. If we went back to, I guess, the second slide where the coverage is, you'll note that we made that 5 years as well. We wanted there to be a consistency in how the retirees and the spouses were being handled in terms of the period of service. So we made them both 5 years. It's a benefit to the individual, and it's a benefit to the spouse. There's 2 less years that they need to be enrolled before they're eligible. So we wanted that we didn't want one to be 5, the other to be 7. We're making the recommendation to make them both 5. We like the consistency, and we think there's a positive benefit to the retirees' spouses to do it that way.
Okay. So disenrollment of coverage. So we realized in the current policy, it doesn't address any point that if a retiree chooses not to take the coverage that year, it doesn't say whether or not they can come back into it. So we looked at all of the different scenarios, possible scenarios that we could encounter, and this is what we came up with. So if an employee doesn't participate in the county medical, prescription, dental, or vision insurance, or waives the coverage prior to retirement, they will not be eligible for the retiree health insurance program. At the time of the retirement, if the employee elects to waive participation in the program, they're not eligible to re-enroll or to enroll at the program at a later date. And then additionally, if they participate in the program and then elect not to continue, again, they cannot re-enroll, okay? It's pretty simple. And surviving spouse of a retiree, we've added this in, just as an additional benefit to our retirees. So should a surviving spouse of a retiree, if a retiree passes and their surviving spouse wants to continue their health insurance coverages with the county that they had when the retiree was living. The county will allow them to do so, but then the coverages will then switch to an individual coverage rate and will contribute to their premiums at that individual rate, not the spousal rate.
This is one of the changes that was recommended and approved back when we met last fall about it, and put it into active, made it active at that time. You know, fortunately, we haven't really had to address this one since then.
All right, and then the last one, we brought this up because we're very fortunate that a lot of our employees retire and then they want to come back and work for us and help us out. So we needed to add a piece into the policy to address those individuals. So as long as the retiree is reemployed full-time by the county, they are eligible to elect county-sponsored medical, prescription, and dental vision coverages. Medicare allows them to do this as long as they are employed full-time by an entity that provides the same amount of coverage or same or similar coverages as Medicare. So we added that piece in. Additionally, the retiree can also waive the county-sponsored medical, prescription, and dental and vision coverages and stay in that retiree health care program, okay? If they elect to stay in the retiree health insurance plan, their original retirement date will be used to determine which appropriate reimbursement they fall into. So if they were, retired prior to July 1 of 2023, they'll fall into that category. If they retired after July 1 of 2023, they fall into the other category, okay?
Makes sense.
Yep. That's what we were shooting for. So then also if the retiree opts to enroll in the county-sponsored plans while reemployed full-time and subsequently leaves county employment, the retiree will then be eligible to re-enroll into the retiree health insurance program. We added that in because they're coming back to do a service for the county and we didn't want to penalize them for opting in for the county benefits versus the retiree health program. And that's it.
Okay.
I have one thing that I would like for you to consider before you bring this back to us. There's about six county employees that have dedicated 30 years or more to the county. And we talked about this briefly at some point. These employees have been good employees. They have fulfilled the 30-year requirement and beyond in some cases. And as of July 1st, 2023, we kind of pulled the rug from under their feet. It's a very small number of employees. No, they hadn't retired, but they had put their time in, and they chose to continue to serve the county, which is commendable. I would like to see us maybe consider allowing the employees that have reached that milestone to be grandfathered in to the other group that retired prior to
the pre-July 1, 2023
Yeah,
group.
I mean, for instance, we have some employees that have worked for the county for 40 years and done a commendable job, some that have been there for 30-some years, commendable work, or they wouldn't be here. And they're continuing to serve, and this was a decision that was made back in July 1st, 2023, and really that wasn't taken into consideration. So I'd like to see us put something in place so that those employees that have dedicated so many years to the county will also receive the same benefit for their service.
I have a question for Jim. Would it work, instead of saying, if you actually retired before July 1st, 2023, to if you were eligible to retire at that date, whether you did or not? Because let's say somebody could have retired on or before July 1st, 2023, and they chose to keep working, they would then get the same benefits as their colleagues who chose to retire rather than to keep working. Would that, if you use that language saying if you were eligible as of July 1st, 2023 to retire, whether you did or not, would that accomplish what Commissioner Price is looking to accomplish, that language?
I think that's exactly what Commissioner Price is suggesting.
I'll be honest with you, I was thinking exactly what you was, Tom, when you said it. If somebody had their 30 years in prior to that date you're talking about, but chose to keep working, they should be eligible for the old retirement.
So you would just, on that policy, just change it, instead of saying, did you actually retire, to if you were eligible to retire at that day, then you would get the
Yeah, I don't know whether or not we would change the one section to say retired or eligible as of prior to 7/1/2023, or simply create a separate paragraph that's a caveat to that, saying that there is a special circumstance, and that special circumstance is this, to make it very clear that we're dealing with a very, very small group of individuals who, as you pointed out, gave that dedicated service. I don't think,
I think
I think we'd have to look at, to make sure that there's nothing in the language in the HRA or through the provider that would create a problem or cause any questions that way. That's the only thing that crosses my mind, and that would be the mechanics of the language in the HRA contract, or whether or not there's anything with, I don't think Cigna's going to care for the under 65. To me, it would just be the over 65 and the potential, and any question with the HRA is all that's coming to mind for me.
Well, you kind of get the gist of what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
And you can think about it and look into it, and because we're going to be a couple weeks before we approve it, because you agreed
Yeah, we
to
could
give me a little time to
absolutely
better
check into that to make sure, but totally understand.
Depends on age.
Huh?
It's mostly gonna depend upon age
Yeah.
and the HRA.
I don't know that any of them are 65 yet,
I don't think they are either.
so it may not be an issue.
May not.
Right, exactly. That's the only thing we would want to make sure about is that piece. But the concept, certainly, and you know, as we chatted about very briefly, you do have half a dozen folks here who have far exceeded the eligible retirement age, you know, and are now, you know, we're into July of 2024, and there's a half a dozen folks that are still with the organization and still contributing.
So without that having some type of public notice that this was going to happen, where they could make a decision to either stay or retire, I think it's a fair way to treat these people that have been here for 30-plus years.
Yeah, and I agree with you. If we go down that path, and we're talking a half a dozen people, all you're talking about is including their supplemental in what the county will contribute to their insurances. So, you know, 85 or 90% for a half a dozen people, it's just not that much money to break the bank.
Plus, it's fair.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely that. We will make sure we do that research, and when we return in a couple of weeks' time to revisit this and request a motion to continue forward with revising the policy, we'll make sure we have this piece answered and the language in the policy to, you know, to correctly reflect it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you all.
for the presentation. That's very good. Very well done, Jen.
See, I told you they liked you.
Very well done.
It was actually pretty good.
Oh, thanks.
It's actually good.
It must be all that sugar you got at the parade.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know what I'm talking about.
I didn't get anything.
Oh, yeah. Covered you up with Tootsie Rolls.
No, I thought you were gonna throw the whole bucket at me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shelley?
Okay, I have two items for you this morning for one more minute. The first is, we've talked at length in the past about the Board of Elections lease. We currently lease from KRM a site in the industrial park. We have talked about potentially either moving that site to another KRM location or moving it to the Wharton Elementary School, which we don't know what the answer to that is at this point. KRM has offered a 6-month, month-to-month extension of our current lease. It is 50 cents additional per square foot, which is about $125 per month for the next 6 months.
It looks like they've added CAM. That seems to be all the commercial
Correct.
leases now. They never used to do that. If you look at our existing leases, there was nothing in there for common area maintenance. And then all of a sudden, it just keeps popping up in commercial lease after commercial lease. So in addition to the square footage, looks like they want to charge us $120 a month for the common area maintenance. I don't know if that's something we just say no and, we're not going to pay it, negotiate, or I see there's somebody from KRM here, but I've just noticed that you never saw KRM, or you never saw CAM in these leases before, and then all of a sudden it's kind of sneaking up in them, which is an additional cost to us.
I'm just, this is just food, just me asking some questions, but the location where it's at, I was there, and obviously it's got a load of stuff stored in it. The stuff that's stored in it, isn't that what goes out to all the voting sites?
Yes.
Would another idea be to just rent some storage space and keep the office where it's at because everybody is familiar with that location?
I've been told that they have to be co-located.
Okay.
Now, whether or not it could be co-located in the same area,
I mean, I'm not trying to complicate this thing or nothing, but I was just thinking, if all that stuff that's in their way it's not used at that building, it's used, they got to
Everywhere else.
transport it everywhere else. If you just had a vacant space for storage and kept the office where it's at, just got rid of all the machines and stuff that aren't used there no way. When it comes time to distribute them, they're going to the firehouses and all the locations where people vote. I'm just food for thought. I don't, I'm good whatever we want to do. I will say the argument that they're running out of space is a very legitimate argument. I agree with it. So I'll go however we want, but it might be easy. I was just thinking, instead of moving all the offices and the desks and stuff, you could leave everything where it's at and just move the clutter, the junk out of there and put it in a common spot. Just,
we'll explore it.
okay,
We
very
may even
good.
own buildings that could handle the storage of the voting machines. Now, we don't have any space anywhere that we,
Well, I think it needs to be temperature controlled, and
Probably
there has to
so.
be a really secure
Right, I would imagine it's very.
security on it.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking because people understand where the space, they're familiar with where we're located.
The other thing too is, it's my understanding that the Kent County School Board approved for us to maybe take over as part of that elementary school out at Wharton, and to move the whole shop out there, where there's plenty of room. I mean, right now, it's just a bus depot, and I'm not saying that they don't need that, it's just,
Right, there's a lot of
there's a
unutilized space.
lot of square footage that's being unused.
Right.
And being probably maintained, heated.
Right.
So we're exploring that with the new superintendent. Obviously, we haven't even met her yet. She is going to be reaching out to each of you individually to meet with you. And then she would also like to come in and join us at a meeting, and I would imagine that would be one of our first priorities with them, is what would be the terms of
The three of
setting that.
the three of us actually did meet with the new superintendent
Wonderful.
at the parade in Rock Hall.
oh, very
for the Fourth.
good,
Now, it was
very
very
good.
unofficial, but she sent word to us
Excellent.
that she would like to meet us, and we all walked over there and spoke
Excellent.
with her. So
Good.
we know her when we see her anyhow.
Really, only two of us met. because I was at a lemonade stand
Oh, yeah.
buying lemonade for my granddaughter when Albert and Ronnie got with the new superintendent. But I have full intentions on trying to get together with her and have a conversation. To me, regardless of what we do, we have an election coming up in November. We're not going to be moving anything until after that anyhow.
Right.
So I would like to see KRM consider waiving that $120 monthly fee. But I know, I don't want to.
I'm on the other side of the hall now, so.
You could share the message.
I can take the message.
You could share the message. That it would be very much appreciated if they would think about waiving that fee for the county. So, anybody else have anything?
We're good.
I mean,
So if you approve this, they'll come back to us with an official amendment, and
If they-
that's what will be
if they
signed.
amend. I make a motion to approve the proposed as submitted or amended.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. Next up is, as you know, we have an 80-year agreement with 3 of our neighboring counties and Maryland Environmental Service for landfill. We spent 20 years in Talbot. We've been in Caroline now at Midshore 2 for just over 10 years, about 14 years, and we're due to leave there in about 5 years. Each county is going to host the landfill for 20 years, as currently written. There's a lot of additional airspace available in Caroline. It has been negotiated that we will likely keep the landfill there in Caroline for 12 additional years. There are some terms and conditions to the original 80-year agreement that would need to be amended to include a host fee for the county that's hosting it beyond the 20-year mark, in this case Caroline. The currently negotiated rate would be $3 per ton tipping fee, while it is already contracted to be in Caroline, and for every ton after the tipping fee that would go to Caroline would be $6 for approximately 12 years, however long we would continue to use that airspace. In addition, the tipping fee would increase 1.4% per year instead of it being reviewed year over year over year. If for some reason that 1.4% doesn't quite get us there or estimates what it would cost, we would then reevaluate, but it would be built in instead of evaluated every single year. An amended, restated memorandum of understanding by and between the Midshore Regional Counties and Maryland Environmental Service for solid waste disposal has been drafted. The other counties have approved. It was the Attorney General's office that drafted this. And I did, as Tom mentioned a moment ago, did just receive a message from Caroline that they will agree with the draft as submitted, that is currently in your packet, with one exception. And that is to approve the MOU with one final addition, and that is that the agreement states something to the effect that the payments will be retroactive to July 1st. So they don't want to miss a couple of payments here because this agreement has taken a little longer to negotiate.
This past July 1st.
A couple
Yeah,
days ago,
yeah.
right, exactly. So if you approve
Wow,
this
that's,
draft.
That's fine tuning, that is.
That's very much fine tuning, exactly. So we don't have the signed copy for you to sign, the PDF for you to sign today, but if you approve what is in your packet and/or the addition of retroactively making it effective, the fees being effective July 1st, when we do have that final draft, we can get it in front of you for signature.
I'm fine with that.
Albert, you good?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve and sign the amended and restated memorandum of understanding by and between the Midshore Regional Counties and the Maryland Environmental Services for solid waste disposal. And the fees will start on July 1st, 2024.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
So that one's been a long time coming, and our next regional effort will be one that's near and dear to us, and that is the detention center. So expect those documents in the near future.
So Kent County's responsibility is now about 32 years away.
Right.
That's a big deal.
Hopefully they'll have something else to take place in the landfill.
It is noteworthy that in the agreement that by 2050, we will have to identify the site where it will be hosted when it's our responsibility.
Very good.
And the longer we push back to that day, the tougher it's going to be and the more expensive it's going to be.
There's a farm out there, Still Pond Neck.
It's just something we may want to consider, and I know Commissioner Fithian goes back this far, but about 15 years ago, we identified some potential sites, and we had a nice presentation where we had mapping of the county showing the areas that are in ag preservation or in critical areas or in incorporated towns or aren't large enough, to do the landfill. And so the universe, once you take all that out, the universe of where you can have a landfill is not all that great.
No. I bet you those campsites down your way would really love to see a landfill.
I bet they would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would love that. Pretty neat environmental
I'm like Ronnie,
studies.
I'm hoping within 32 years, maybe there'll be another method of
Golly dig, should we all
Deal with
vote?
it.
dealing
And
with it.
those camps could become winter camps with that sledding hill across the street.
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah.
Listen, before I forget, and I don't know why I didn't, and it's obvious, but where I told Dan that my daughter fell off that pier, she left that board up like that, so.
Okay.
So it
I'll tell him.
should be very obvious unless somebody puts it back down, but
Which public landing was it?
Spring Cove.
It was Spring Cove,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Okay, now we have, this is a time for public comment. Anybody? Okay? We're good? So,
One comment I would make, again, and it's on the positive, I've said it before, but as a regular user of one of your county parks, and then yesterday I happened to be at another, they're in great shape. I mean, I think whoever is responsible, and I know there's always crews that are doing them, I happened to be at the one in Rock Hall yesterday evening, but I think they're just a wonderful facility for taxpayers in the county.
they are, and I'll take it one step further. Kent County doesn't always, we don't think, kind of gets overlooked with a lot of things, but we have probably as many public landings as any place in the state, and that's one place where we do get our share of voter registration fees and stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff that we've put in is 90% paid by the state, 10 by us. So and I tell you, it's just nice to have that much access to our waterways, because that's what Kent County is all about. Very nice. I guess we have a couple closed sessions, so we need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session under the annotated Code of Maryland General Provisions, Article 3-305B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice and to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. First topic that we plan to discuss would be a legal opinion of the county attorney concerning potential litigation matters. And the reason for the closed session of the topic, we are closing the meeting to discuss the topic because legal advice from the county attorney is private to the public and to shield specific details of potential ongoing litigation. The second matter is we expect to discuss this matter to discuss personnel recommendations, certain criteria, and the legal opinions of the county attorney. And that's being done to shield the specific details of personnel recommendations and specific recommendations from the county attorney are private to the public.
I need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. We